Missy is a resident of Grants Pass. She says the rise in homelessness has left many residents scared.
It's really sad to see what's happened, not just down here, but this whole town.
I was assaulted. I guess that's like one of my biggest fears, is that happening again. I mean, I was alone when that happened, but I can't even imagine if like one of my kids was with me.
You say there's constant shooting up of drugs, overdoses, dead bodies have been found.
Out in the open.
Brock claims the city of Grants Pass has always been about community, but now that park has become a place for homelessness and drug use.
I'm not an expert, but I know living with drug addicts, my son's a drug addict. You could find my son a house tomorrow, but that doesn't mean he'll be able to take care of it.
So your son is actually in that park?
He's in the park right now.
You wear a hidden camera, and you're holding weekly meetings and showing some of this and talking to people because you're trying to get the city to act. What do you guys want them to do? What's the answer?
First of all, clean up the parks.
Our next guest, Dion, has thankfully found safe refuge in a shelter for the homeless after living months trying to survive on the streets.
They didn't just give me a bed to lay on or a place to go. They immediately, day one, poured so much love into you and make you feel like you're worth it and show you that there's hope.
And you don't think they should criminalize homelessness?
Absolutely not.
If somebody like you finds herself without a place to stay and the place you're in doesn't have resources to help you get over a hump, they have 50 beds and 100 people that need them, we shouldn't arrest the 50 that don't get a bed. That's insane. Well, joining us now is Donald Whitehead, who is the Executive Director of the National Coalition for the Homeless. On the other side is Matt Makoviak, who is the co-founder of Save Austin Now.
People don't want to be homeless. And if you find, jail, and arrest people, after that's over, they're still homeless. So you haven't solved the problem.
It's the cities that have, unfortunately, allowed open camping with really no rules almost whatsoever, certainly no enforcement. Camping is a way to allow homeless individuals to make tragic choices. We've never believed homelessness is about housing entirely. And I know Donald and I disagree on this. He's for housing first. We're very much for treatment first.
We're for
treatment first.
I'm for the facts.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
I'm lobbing you a softball here. You and I have been through this before. If the outcome criteria is heads in beds,
right,
of course you can reduce homelessness 93%. If the outcome criteria is you got a bunch of homeless people and you come and say, I'll put you in a house, they go, sure. Hell yeah, give me a house. I'm a happy camper. I'm no longer a camper, I'm now in a house. Then sure, you reduce it 93% because people will say, I'll take a house, I'll take a small unit to live in that's warm and dry and has heat. Sure, you can reduce it, but are you advancing them towards becoming a contributing member of society? You're reducing homelessness. You talk about making them invisible. You're tucking them away in a housing unit somewhere. You've reduced it 93%. Because you gave them a house.
But the key isn't just the housing, Dr.
I know,
Phil.
that's why I started giving you a softball. So
it's housing and supportive services to address.
But you don't require the services.
There's a case manager, and they are moved to get the services. Now,
You don't require it.
We do require them to definitely abide by any kind of housing lease requirements that are in place.
But you don't require the service. They don't have to go to rehab. They don't have to participate in therapy. They don't have to do anything.
But most people will do that on their own.
drugs on those services.
No, they can't do drugs because that's going to be part of the lease. And they can't do any kind of criminal activity because that's in the lease as well. So those things they can't do. They are offered treatment. They're offered mental health services. They have a case manager. They have a whole team of people that are working to keep them in place. But that's one part of the solution. The other part is we need to create affordable housing in this country. Of the people who are eligible for affordable housing, only a quarter of the people get it because we don't have enough housing units. And Grant Pass is a perfect example. Your population exploded, but your city government, your elected officials didn't build new housing. So there's not enough housing for the people. You have one shelter, and that shelter is a faith-based shelter where you have to You have to pray every day, and I'm a faith-based person, but I'm a Christian. Not everybody in America is a Christian. People come from other religions. They have to take a breathalyzer. So there's not enough shelter in most cities, I would say almost every city in the United States, to meet the population.
Matt, what do you want to say?
Well, just that, if you think about camping for a second, listen, I'm in favor
But
of...
that's not what's at the Supreme Court now.
Right.
The Supreme Court it isn't about camping.
I understand
It's about making people criminals if they're homeless.
It's partly about that. What it really is about is it's saying...
It's cruel and unusual punishment.
Let me finish.
It's the Eighth Amendment.
Okay, let me finish. The question is, does a city have to provide housing for every person who's homeless in their city with no limitations whatsoever, or can they put rules in place? Look, no one is saying that a city is going to criminalize every homeless individual. You criminalize behavior, you criminalize choices, not existence, right? And so, look, a city like that's that size, if 10,000 homeless people move from Northern California there in a 3-month period, are taxpayers in that city supposed to be required to provide permanent supportive housing forever?
So let me...
That's what the case is really about.
So I just love to use facts to have these conversations.
So I just use facts too.
So there was a study at the University of California, and what it found is that the overwhelming majority of people that are homeless in the community come from that community. So this idea that people are moving to a community for better services, that's just a myth. It's not
No,
true.
it's not.
Oh, that's not a myth.
It is
We live in this town.
California has 55% of the homeless people in America.
They
do not
do,
come
but
from
those people,
California.
90%, that USC California study, 90% of those people came from Los Angeles. They studied the Los Angeles population. They either came from Los Angeles or somewhere else in California. So think about it. There's a person who's experiencing homelessness. They don't have enough money to be able to afford a place to live. Where did they get the money to move to California?
You don't think
It just doesn't make sense.
It's not about them getting the money. There are nonprofits that put them on buses, they hitchhike, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can ask law enforcement in any major city
People
if that
don't
happens.
move to cities for their homeless services. That's just not...
Yes,
They are
yes,
right
they
doesn't
now.
make
They are
sense.
now.
They are right now.
You can ask them and talk to them
So
on the street.
I do.
They
I
tell
talk to
us.
homeless
We do
people
too.
every day.
We do too in our
I've been working
town.
on homeless issues for 29 years.
I commend you for
talk
that.
to people every day. They come in my office, they sit next to me. I'm also a recovering addict. So I'm a perfect example. If you give someone services, they can contribute to society in all kinds of ways.
Well, how do you fix the drug problem? I mean, you're
You
putting the
fix drug
shoe on the
problem this way.
you're
Let me-
putting the
let me
shoe on
tell
your
you how
foot
you
before the
fix drug
sock.
problem. You provide facilities for people to get
We
treatment.
have them.
You just said on the commercial, somebody just said on the commercial, you don't have enough treatment facilities in your
We don't have like mental health facilities.
That's right, because we emptied out mental health facilities
Right.
during deinstitutionalization.
Yes.
What they promised was that there was going to be housing for those people leaving the mental health institutions. That never happened.
All right, well, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We're going to add a woman who has dedicated her life to working directly with people experiencing homelessness. We're going to find out why she says they need to get off the streets. We'll meet her after the break. I've seen it all, from folks stuck in toxic relationships to people whose houses look like a tornado went through a craft store. But there's one problem I see plaguing America, and it ain't on the couch. It is the couch. Hydeline offers customizable leather options so you can pick the color that fits your style. They've got specialized hybrid foam and pocketed coil cushion systems to help you sit comfortably for hours. For a limited time, you can get 10% off store-wide and free shipping with code Dr. Phil 10 at Hydeline.com.
After my husband passed away, and that's when I ended up in the tent in the parks. And I've been out here now for 10 months and almost 2 weeks. The old Fruitdale Elementary School used to be right here where this park is, and all 3 of my kids went there. And Morrison Park over there, my son, he used to play Little League in that field. I've lived here for 45 years, and then because we don't have a house, we're not considered residents. We don't all do drugs. We don't all steal. Many people need to remember that this can happen to anybody.
Michelle Steeb ran Northern California's largest homeless shelter for women and children for 13 years. She's also a senior fellow with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, working on policies that help people experiencing homelessness in this country. So welcome, Michelle. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Now, Michelle, many are struggling with addiction and mental illness. That's just a fact, true?
Yeah, in the program I ran, again, the largest in Northern California, 78% of our women were struggling with addiction, about 70% with mental illness, domestic violence, many other issues as well, yep.
And you're saying taking those people and giving them 4 walls and a bed just doesn't address the issue.
That's exactly right.
And what do you think's missing?
Well, let me give a little context. So in 2013, our country was dealt a seismic blow, our homeless system. Basically, the federal government, which is the largest funder of homelessness, said, we are only going to fund one thing, that is permanent, lifelong housing vouchers with no conditions for everyone who struggles with homelessness. What we basically did was we dismantled our homelessness system. We took away funding for mental health, for drug and alcohol counseling, for therapy. We no longer require those things either. We dismantled shelters. We dismantled transitional housing programs. We completely dismantled accountability in the system. At the individual level, there's no accountability. At the nonprofit level, there's no accountability. There's 11 nonprofits right now in San Francisco that are under investigation for misuse of funds. And there's no accountability at the federal level, at the government level. Homelessness has gone up. We are at the highest point in our country's history right now under this policy because we only fund one thing, and that is lifelong housing without services. And we need to rebuild a system that we've completely dismantled.
Well, let me talk about that for a minute. I would really like your opinion about this, Michelle. And Donald and Matt, I'd like you to weigh in on this as well, because from a psychological standpoint, I got a real problem with this. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson here for a second, guys, and this, you're going to think, oh, here we go with some boring thing. It's really not. Up until 1845, when a woman named Dorothea Dix really made a monumental change in the treatment of the mentally ill, they were chained up. In this country, they were chained up in concrete stalls, often naked, and hosed down like animals. Mentally ill people were treated like they were some kind of possessed demons. And honestly, they were chained up until Dorothea Dix, who had some issues of her own, really started raising hell about this, first in Massachusetts, then in New Jersey. And she actually got a federal bill going, which President Franklin Pierce vetoed in 45, and then had to come back and fight it again. And until we finally started saying, wait a minute, this is an illness. We have to start treating this. Until 1845, it was barbaric the way these people were treated. And then things started progressing. And then in the mid-1900s, we started putting them on powerful drugs that we didn't know how worked, actually started doing lobotomies and just warehousing these people, not really doing anything to help them, just getting them out of the way so they weren't inconvenient to society in these massive asylums. Think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was that type thing where we just warehouse these people until what you are talking about happened and the funding pulled, and then we stopped warehousing and started streeting these people. So now they're on the street. That's why there's such a high concentration among the chronic population of mentally ill and addicted people. 85% of the deaths of homeless people are overdoses. What do you figure? There's 22% of homeless people are chronic? And among those, 78% are addicted, 65% live on the street, 85% deaths are drug-related, and as many as 67%, according to a study in 24, are mentally ill. Nobody's treating these people. we're talking about this like it's a homelessness epidemic. This is a mental illness epidemic, and nobody's offering treatment to these people. If we don't treat these people, they're going to continue to behave in maladaptive ways and continue to unwind. And many of these are veterans who have put their lives on the line for our country and come back and are not getting the support that they deserve. Yeah. And that is a shame. You can measure the quality of any society by the way they treat their elderly and their veterans, and we get a really bad score right now. Michelle?
There's actually one long-term study where they place the chronically homeless individuals in housing without mandatory services. In 5 years, almost 50% of the people died. And 2 years later, 36% remain in housing. This does not work. And a lot of the people that are struggling with mental illness and addiction are also struggling with a deficit of self-awareness called anosognosia that prevents them from being self-aware and recognizing the need for help. So not mandating it and not funding these services is such a horrible mistake. I think the Boston study proves this is putting people into hospice for the vast majority of people that are being housed under this policy.
So Donald, how do we step up? If we're going to do housing first, there are a number of studies that suggest that it is the most efficacious approach because it's lower risk than being on the street. But if we don't get a more aggressive approach to treating the mental illness and helping with the addiction, it's not going to have the long-term effect that it could have. It's wasted money if we don't get them better services.
Most of us out here, we lost our jobs during COVID or couldn't catch up.
I had 2 jobs in at home. The COVID hit and everything just went downhill.
This is not the life for anybody. I'm looking on it. I'm alive.
I've had lived experience. I was homeless for 15 and a half years. A lot of these people don't want to be out here. As far as that goes, you got to have a place to have a shower. You got to have a shower to have a job. You got to have an ID to have a job. You need an address for an ID. So, like, it's a brutal cycle. It's pretty vicious. And getting out of it, once you get in it, it's really hard.
I'm 65, grew up in Hawaii, lots of sunshine. My degree is in environmental science. Had a good life, had a marriage, didn't last. My focus was on trying to get my farm going. My farm got sold. I had it for 35 years. I developed it. It was my baby. Had cancer, which I knew I had, but hadn't seen a doctor at that time because I didn't have insurance in Hawaii. And the cost of living is so expensive there. I sold everything I had and moved to the West Coast. I've been here for the last 16 months.
Everybody's story is different. A lot of people have come in from other areas. A lot of people are local, you know. One wrong misstep and they ended up out here, you know. I do challenge people to get to know their stories and get to know the people and not just make judgments.
I was given socks when I was homeless. I was given socks, shampoo, and some crackers. That was better than any kind of money that anybody could have given me. Socks I had on haven't been washed in about 2.5 weeks. Just that little stuff gives you hope. Love your neighbor as thyself. Like, isn't that the code that we live by? But you think you're better than the person that's sitting at the light asking for money. Just have a little bit of compassion.
If we don't get a more aggressive approach to treating the mental illness and helping with the addiction, it's not going to have the long-term effect that it could have. It's wasted money if we don't get them better services.
So a couple of things. The program is designed to address mental health and substance abuse services. In fact, to qualify for permanent supportive housing, you have to have a disability and you have to be homeless for more than a year. And when people go into those programs, the idea is that we will move them into treatment. And if we go back and look at history accurately, from 2007 to 2016, we saw a dramatic decrease in the number of people homeless in this country. We saw an increase this year. It went up by 12%. You're absolutely right. The culprit is not people's mental health or substance abuse. It's the housing cost increases in this country that have increased at a rate of year over year 18%. So we've seen dramatic housing cost increases in this country. That's why we've seen an increase in homelessness. It's not because more people are mentally ill or more people have substance abuse. The largest sector, the largest growing sector of the population is seniors. And so for the seniors, for the majority of them, there's not a substance abuse or mental health issue there. The issue is that people can't afford housing in this country.
But you can't deny that a significant portion of the existing homeless population does have mental illness issues.
The majority of the people who are unsheltered in homelessness, the majority of the people that we see on the street, and I understand that that's who people encounter. They encounter people living on the street, but that's only a small portion of the population, 26%. That means the other 74% are veterans. There are women who are suffering in domestic violence. There are people who just can't afford the rent. That's the larger portion of the population, and we get them through the system very quickly. In Los Angeles, 725 people get housed every day through the homeless system. Guess what? The next day, 725 more show up. So we have to go upstream. We have to prevent evictions. We have to give people wages that they can use to afford housing. Nowhere in this country, nowhere, zero, not one community in this country can you afford a 2-bedroom housing unit if you make minimum wage in this country, if you get subsidized income in this country. So we have to produce more housing in this country. Homelessness is a housing problem, and we have to create more housing. And I would say that those mental health and other services really got cut back when we started the war on drugs. That's when we start cutting back on mental health. That's when we start cutting back on substance abuse treatment programs in this country. That's when we started to go downhill, when we started to, a war on drugs became a war on poverty.
You can't be tunnel visioned on housing and to the exclusion of mental health. It is a major
My son
issue.
has a house. My son has a house.
I'm not saying that mental health is not an issue in this country. I would absolutely.
It is a major issue. What do you want to say?
Because of deinstitutionalization.
So
That's right. That's right.
I mentioned in 2013 when we rolled out Housing First as a one-size-fits-all solution, right?
It's not a one-size-fits-all, though. That's the thing.
It
It's
is.
one solution
Okay, let me finish
among
with
a number
data.
of solutions.
Since you're very data-oriented, I want to finish with this data. Between 2014 and 2019, as a country, we increased the number of permanent housing units by 42.7%.
That is correct.
Unsheltered homelessness went up by 20.5%. This was during a very great economy. The overall sheltered population went up by 16%.
And where did housing come from?
If housing, let me just finish. If housing were the solution to homelessness would have gone down as we increased the amount of housing by 42.7%. That is a fact.